Hello, and welcome to Module 1 of becoming an international best-selling author overnight. The first thing we're going to work on are your fingers. Yes, that's right, your fingers. However many you have, this first step will get you halfway to becoming an international best-selling author overnight. What most people don't realize is the biggest difference between rubbish writers and amazing ones is just their finger dexterity. If you learn to bend your fingers like a proper author using our patented Digit Widget, you'll gain the flexibility to type and write like a literary great. It's a well-known fact that you could... Find out more after this short message from our sponsor, the Failing Writers Podcast.
So the other week, when we were talking about my hilarious new book, The 2-Hour Sales Bible, that is still available to purchase on Amazon right now, when we were talking about that, it got us to thinking about writing under a different name.
Yeah, the pseudonym, or the pen name, or the nom de plume, or, more correctly, the nom de guerre.
Yeah, because I was saying that with the sometimes challenging content of your book, Tom, you might not want to use the same name when it comes to releasing your mid-grade kids' books.
If he ever releases a mid-grade kids book.
That sounds more accurate.
But yeah, there are lots of reasons for writers not wanting you to know their real names.
Yeah, totally. Like, maybe they're in prison for doing something not very nice, like eating children, unlicensed street performance, or individually selling cans of pop that have not for individual resale written on them.
Exactly.
Absolute monsters.
Yeah, or maybe they're a massively unpopular politician and don't want to be judged for being a complete...
Countries across the world sometimes spawn strange names too, don't they? So maybe maybe a writer just ended up with a really weird name, like Grelth Trifle Jackinpop.
Could be. That
I
is
don't
a
know.
different one.
It is a weird name, but you're right. Sometimes things just don't translate. I remember there's a story about when Toyota had to change the name of the MR2 in France because MR2 is M-A-D, which basically sounds like mad, which is French for shit, which, you know, isn't a great name for your car, is it?
No.
The shit.
Not ideal, no. So, yeah, so it's fair to say that the reasons can be many and varied, but I bet there are some you didn't even know were pen names.
Oh, like who?
Like Eric Arthur Blair.
Never heard of him.
I think you have.
What?
Our old mate Eric decided to write under a pseudonym in the early 20th century because, well, firstly, he didn't want anyone to know who he was if his writing turned out to be crap. Well, you know, which we can kind of understand, feel that, fair enough.
Seems fair
Secondly,
enough.
he didn't want to embarrass his parents, presumably in case it turned out his writing was crap. So that was obviously on his mind quite a lot. And thirdly, he thought Eric was the name of a pompous little tosser in a Victorian boy story. So didn't really like his name.
It all seems quite negative, that, doesn't it? Yeah, so did his writing end up being crap?
Well, I don't know. It's difficult to judge, but I would say that Animal Farm in 1984 were quite well received.
Right, okay, so it was George Orwell. So why did he choose, why George Orwell?
I don't know. I guess he liked the name George better than Eric, which, fair enough.
Rather than Zippy.
And, yeah, didn't want to make a bungle of it. And I think he thought of George, and then he couldn't really think of a pseudo surname and just thought, oh, well, that'll do. Oh, well.
Nice.
Oh, well.
Nice.
That'll, no? Okay.
Okay, well, how about Charles Lutwidge Dodgson? Who do you think that was?
Was that Charles Dickens?
No.
Oh, is it King Charles? Did he write a book?
No, Dave, no.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, go on.
Is it J.K. Rowling's real name?
Now, that's funny. No, it's not. It's the real name of Lewis Carroll. Being an Oxford Don, he wanted to keep his like scholarly writing separate from his children's lit. So he wrote his Alice books under the name Lewis Carroll. But apparently it's Charles Lutwidge, Latinized into Carolus Ludovicus, and then anglicised back into Carol Lewis, but with the order change.
That is convoluted, isn't it?
That's a bit much.
Sounds like the kind of thing you do when you try not to write and you spend like the evening creating some convoluted route to get a name
about
or
with
something.
names, conjugating things.
That is very Oxford Donny, isn't it?
Very.
Okay, I've got one. How about David Cornwell?
David Cornwell. That sounds historical crime fiction, I think.
See, that already sounds like a pen name. not the real
well,
name.
no, see,
You know what I
I'll
mean?
give you a clue, right? The reason that he had to use a pen name is one of the much less common reasons.
He was actually a dog. Was he, was he like a Labrador?
The reason was he worked for military intelligence.
Clever dog.
Yeah, good boy.
So that must be either the James Bond fella, Ian Fleming, no? Or John le Carré?
Yeah, I'm thinking John the Square.
There we go. Correct. Yes. Well done.
So, have you any idea why he chose such a weird name?
Not really, but apparently when his publisher asked him what name he was going to use, it just popped into his head, as it does.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good enough reason.
His publisher wanted the name to be very Anglo-Saxon and straightforward.
Right, yeah. So he just completely ignored him.
Yeah.
Something
very good.
totally different.
Does sound cool, though.
Quite lucky, really, because he just got it from somewhere. Just like, could have been called like Chris Potplant. He just said the
seen
first
it,
thing he
yeah.
saw, but at least he had a decent imagination.
Yeah.
But here's one for you. This is a dead famous one.
Right.
Right.
Samuel Langhorne Clemens.
Samuel Clemens. I don't know. It sounds American, is he?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Very American.
Mark Twain.
Yes. Correct. It is Mark Twain. But do you know why he chose Mark Twain?
No.
Well, it comes from his time working on Mississippi riverboats. Apparently, it's like a riverboatman's call. By the Mark Twain. That's what they shout.
I say.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And basically means it's like a shortened version of, according to the mark on the line, the depth is 2 fathoms and therefore safe to pass. So, twain obviously being an archaic word for two. You know, like never the twain shall meet. So, there you go.
Oldie English, yeah. Oh, okay.
Very good. Nice, Tom. Do you know one of my favourites?
No.
And I think you can really see why they went for a pen name. And that's Anne Rice's real name. Anyone?
Don't know. Racine Montague Spatula III.
Is it,
Not
no?
quite,
No.
no.
Am I close?
Oh, I thought that was a good guess.
Bearing in mind that normally, as a parent, you try to choose a name that won't actively get your child bullied.
Yeah.
It's in this, the same sort of ballpark. So her real name is Howard Allen O'Brien.
Oh.
What? That's it's very boy named Sue territory, that, isn't it?
Definitely.
So, do we know the earliest example of a pen name?
No, I actually couldn't find that anywhere. And did anyone else have any joy with the earliest?
I
ever?
mean, I didn't look, but no.
That does hinder finding things often.
Yeah.
It does seem like there are very few people before the 19th century using pen names, and then suddenly there was a massive flood of them. It became the thing to do.
Just fashion.
I think mainly because good writers were sort of brands, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like, they were happy for people to know who they were. They kind of needed to.
Yeah, well, I suppose like Shakespeare was a name, wasn't he, in his own time? People would pay money to go and see a Shakespeare play, so why change it? I can't help. There must have been some, though, surely.
Well, there's Voltaire. He's one. He was a man with a lot of swag.
He was a man.
He was
Right,
a man.
Yeah.
And that was not his real name. He wrote a satirical piece accusing the Prince Regent of having incestuous relations with his daughter, which I thought was quite brave.
I mean,
he ended up being sentenced to 11 months in the Bastille for that little quip.
That's the time when you want to get your pen name out, isn't it? Definitely
Yeah.
wasn't me. I didn't do it.
Exactly, yeah. No, I'm Voltaire.
Got the wrong
no,
guy. I would
Yeah.
never write anything like that. Me? No.
I mean, he must have written that really quickly for it not to have thought halfway through. Do you know what? I probably shouldn't do this.
This isn't a great idea. I could get in trouble for this, couldn't I?
I might have started now.
Probably
I'll just get
true.
to the end.
But yeah, for him, there were lots of reasons why he changed his name. Obviously, that being one of them. But he changed it from François-Marie Arouet, partly because he didn't like his name, because in French it sounded like Arouet, to be beaten up.
Yeah, I suppose that's not very sort of macho sounding.
Not
isn't it?
really. Whereas Voltaire has connotations of voltige, acrobatics,
Yeah.
volte-face, turning to face your enemies. And it is also an anagram of a Latinized version of his name. But he changed his name in 1718, so that's quite an early one.
That is quite a long time ago, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, why else have writers adopted another name?
Well, similar to what we were just saying there, it's a good idea if you're going to be like sarky and scathing about people. It's a good idea to hide behind the name, slink off into the background, isn't it?
Yeah. But ideally do it before you write the thing rather than
so you
afterwards.
can't be tracked down. So William Thackeray, it seems, did that so he could be scathing in humorous journals to people and get away with it. So I suppose, cowardice in a way, isn't it? do something, then run away. Not standing behind what you've written. But this is brilliant. He went by such excellent names as George Savage Fitzboodle,
yeah, good,
Charles James Yellow Plush, and Michael Angelo Titmarsh.
You see, is that true? Because those do sound exactly like something
they do, don't they? Exactly the kind of names I would have come up with. But no, they're actually the names.
Wow.
Which you kind of think, is he maybe just saying, he's giving a clue that obviously not real, and kind of poking extra fun at them. Haha, I've said this and you can't find out who I am.
Yeah, make you wonder who it actually was.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that. See, I'd go for something a lot more dignified if I had to, make up a...
Like Bobby Brown?
Yes.
Pull that one back
yes, a perfectly good name. Just the fact that someone had already used it.
Untraceable.
No, but it's like, but the funny thing is, I can't think of any. Can't think of any at all. But I can think of another reason that you need a pen name, right? So what do these names have in common? Right, you ready?
Yeah, go on.
Mary, I'm going to read them. Mary Westmacott.
Yeah.
Jane Summers.
Yeah.
Richard Bachman. Deanna Dwyer. And Robert Galbraith. Eh?
They are all pseudonyms of already famous writers who wanted to write other books.
Bing, 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 bing,
yeah, that
bing,
last
bing,
one was a
yes,
clue, wasn't
well
it?
done. So, right, but who though? You're all clever, thinking you've got the answer, but who's who? Who's Mary Westmacott?
No idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not
no
so
idea.
clever, are you? That was Agatha Christie.
Oh, really?
Yes. So in 1930, which is also quite a long time ago, she wanted to try her hand at romance. So she published some books under her middle name, Mary, and the surname of some distant relatives.
Well, I didn't know that, Birdie.
I wonder if she ever actually nailed the romance genre then, or whether she probably couldn't help herself, like slipping the odd murder in there all the time.
Yeah.
Which probably ruins the romantic mood most of the time.
Always gathering all the romantic love interest into a drawing room before, by a series of eliminations, selecting who will be chosen. That could be...
Yeah, probably. Although, that's basically just Love Island, isn't it? Now?
That's true, yeah.
Same sort of thing.
Yeah,
she was onto something.
Pretty much so. All right, then. Next one. What about Jane Summers?
No. Tommy?
Stephen King. I bet because he wanted to write romance as well. Mm-hmm. And he was fed up with all the gore and creepiness and blood.
So good.
No. Wrong. No, so it's a tough one. It was actually Nobel Prize winner Doris Lessing.
All right.
Yes. And she did it not because she wanted to try a different genre, but just as an experiment. Apparently, she was worried the publishing industry was massively favouring existing famous writers and weren't taking any chances on new writers at the time.
Oh, well, that's changed massively these days, hasn't it? That's great.
It's completely different now, obviously. But then,
for celebrity, you can't get anyone to release your book, can you? These days,
exactly.
Right, yeah.
It was a worry, but yeah, when a book was published under that name, it hardly sold any copies, despite the fact it actually was a Doris Lessing book, and the critics really liked it as well. I've got a quote here. Hang on. I've got it written down. I wanted to highlight that whole dreadful process in book publishing, that nothing succeeds like success. I don't know where she's from, but she's got this voice. She said, if the books had come out in my name, they would have sold a lot of copies and reviewers would have said, ooh, Doris Lessing, how wonderful.
Oh, well, good on her. That's a nice thing to do.
Right. All right. Next on the list, you've sort of already got this one, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
What about Richard Bachman?
So is that Stephen King?
Yes, but do you know why? Because his Richard Bachman books, like one of my favourites, Running Man, they weren't actually any different genre-wise to his usual stuff, so it wasn't for that reason.
I actually can't think of any other reason. So, yeah. Tell us, Dave. Tell us.
Then I will. It's because the thinking at the time was that an author can't possibly publish more than one book a year. Right. And Stephen King famously writes like one a day. But yeah, readers just wouldn't accept it, they thought. So to cope with his prolific output, they told him to come up with another name. Wow. So he took the Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive. You ain't seen nothing yet, which is a band he was listening to a lot at the time. And Richard was a tribute to Donald E. Westlake, pseudonym Richard Stark.
Oh, so like a pseudonym-inspired pseudonym.
It's like an inception of pseudonyms.
All the way down, yeah. Oh, what a great list. That's, there we go. Have we missed any other ones off? Or is that the complete history of pseudonyms?
Hang on. What about Theodore Geisel?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Zeus.
Very good.
So that was his mother's maiden name, Zeus. And as it turns out, he wasn't even actually a doctor.
What?
No.
What?
He just decided to call himself a doctor.
Really?
Apparently to impress his dad.
So when he asked me to bend over and
No.
put his finger up, that was bloody hell.
Cheeky bugger.
Scooting the newt in Suji boot, as I believe he would probably say.
Any others?
Well, there's James Grant.
Which I know this one. That's Lee Child. Because I was looking at this. That came from like a family joke of just calling everything le something, like le car, like in a mock French kind of way. So his daughter was Le Child.
What?
So, and that stuck. That's where that came from. Just a silly bit of,
Just silly.
Anyone know Daniel Handler?
Oh, that's Lemony Snicket, isn't it?
Correct.
Which sounds like a Polish confectionery to me. But, in fact, it was just a name Daniel Handler came up with to cover his tracks when requesting research from organisations he didn't really want to be associated with.
Wow. Clever.
A lot of different reasons there, aren't there?
A very lot of different reasons.
Yes. All right. What if we give each other a little task then?
What, to write under a pen name?
Yeah.
How about this? Do you remember me telling you about the library writing group that I used to go to?
Yes.
Oh, the one where you annoyed everyone or they hated you?
I didn't annoy everyone.
But the ladies that asked you not to come back.
No.
Did they ask you not to come back?
No, they loved me.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
different-
Okay.
different
But the idea was that you had to make an anagram of your name and then you had to decide who that person was and then write as them. So you almost have to write a little sort of biography of the
okay.
writer themselves.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
But first of all, what we'll do is just let's write anagrams of our own names, and then we'll come back in a minute and tell each other what we've got, okay?
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
If you're a spy like Popoff or McLean and you want to write a book, should probably use a pen name. Maybe you're bored, don't want to change your hair. You should change your name to a nice new nom de guerre. Pen name, no fame, no blame. Pen name, try not to choose anything lame. Pen name. How about Stanley Faraday McCain? Pen name. Come and have a go at our little game. If your parents named you Tom, but the name Tom isn't free, you still gotta write that book, but just do it pseudonymously. If you don't like your name or everyone in the room thinks you're a massive dick, simply write with a nom de plume.
Okay, we're back.
I see. I was a bit worried about this.
With your history with coming up with names. Fair enough.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the starting point of Dave isn't that exciting.
I've come up with Dave Biard. Well done, Dave.
Actually, I've come up with something because I thought I'll make it David, so I've got a few more letters
Oh, he literally
to
has
play
just
with.
what Tom said.
And then,
No, you didn't
No.
come up with just David. No, I see
No.
what you mean. You
No, yeah.
lengthened your name.
I lengthened my
Got you.
name, put middle name in there, which is John. Again, not much to play with, but what I've ended up with sounds quite exotic, I think.
Oh,
Go on
brilliant.
then.
So my story will be written by Dr. Novad Bargi.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, Dr.
Dr.
Novad Bargi.
Bargi. I'm already getting. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Are we thinking? We're obviously thinking Indian,
Eastern.
British Indian.
Yes.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Tommy, what have you got?
Well, now, I remember us talking a while back, and someone suggested, I don't know if it was one of you guys or someone we'd spoke to, that one of the keys to having a good author name was having initials in the name.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
So I thought, fair enough, do that. So I've gone with my full name as full Sunday name as well, because it just gives you that bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
So when I thought about that, move some letters around, so I could be RT Arsemouth.
He sounds like a really good friend of Chad Nadler.
Yeah. So I thought, actually, no, scrap that. Let's forget the initial thing because I don't know what genre that's going to be.
No, I don't think I want to read it.
It could be a
whatever
really
is.
interesting remake of the old Yellow Pages advert from the 1980s. And my name?
Yes.
R.T. Arsemouth. Anyway, so I had another shuffle round, And we came up with Irma Thornset.
Ooh,
Oh, that's nice.
Irma Thornset.
Irma Thornset.
Is Irma a man's or a
woman's
name?
name?
Sounds like a woman.
Yeah.
She sounds like a character in one of those Talking Heads things.
Like an
Yeah,
Alan
it
Bennett
does.
play.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I can already picture her.
Go on then, tell me, because
Yeah.
I can't quite
She's
grasp
got a
what-
blue. I mean, she's got a blue rinse.
Oh, do you think she's going that old?
I
Yeah.
think she's quite odd, ain't she?
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
Oh, don't say that. No, do you not? Or do you think maybe she's younger?
No.
And not writing that sort of... What's she
No,
writing?
she's an older lady, but
she's
she's
got her
quite,
arms
she's
crossed.
into the quite saucy stuff, I reckon.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't
yeah.
sound... I thought maybe more...
Barbara Cartland kind
Taking-
of. That's what I'm getting.
Oh,
Cartland
taking
vibes.
tea with the vicar.
Yeah. But it's up to you, Tom. It's your biography. What were you
I
thinking?
don't know. I could kind of hear that, but I didn't really want to hear that. I think it's probably
You can't turn against the name,
nominative
Tom.
determinism, isn't it?
It's just
You can't fight against
that's
it.
it exactly.
Yeah.
Mr. Cake the Baker or whatever. Yeah, it happens whether you like it or not.
John, what have you got then?
I started with same as you guys.
By mixing up the letters in your name. Yes, John.
That's right.
That's a good
Tom.
idea.
Well
Yeah,
done.
good first step.
Invented a new form of
No,
anagram.
with the full Jonathan
Yeah.
Rand seemed.
Oh, you've got a lot of letters then. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot of the same letters as well. Anyway, I came up with Joanna Dranth.
Oh my
Joanna
God.
Drant.
Oh,
To
Joanna
me,
Dranth.
she sounds a little bit, I don't know, like a bit Margaret Drabbley or something. Or maybe,
I think she's definitely a Richard and Judy book club recommendation, Joanna Drant.
I think maybe crime
Yeah.
or, I don't know.
But with a twist.
quite dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit dark. Yeah. It's almost a bit of a boring name, isn't it? Dranth.
Yeah.
But it's got a bit of deathiness about it.
I think it's all clown-based crime, isn't it? I think that's what you're going to have to write.
Clowns.
Evil clown.
Yeah, just clowns.
crime.
Yeah.
Anyway, then I thought, do you know what? I might throw the middle name in as well,
Oh.
which
Oh.
is Clive. So I
Joanna
went for full,
Clive Dranth.
and I got Vange van der Clarion, which I thought could be like a sort of Dutch
Yeah.
Renaissance writer.
Ski jumper that decided to write
Van
later on in
Clarion.
life.
Maybe.
That is definitely... Was he not in the 1990 Winter Olympics?
Could have been.
I think-
He
yeah.
could have been. I don't know whether to settle on him or Nathaniel V. Jochand, American Civil War writer.
I was just going to say, that is American. That is American.
Yeah.
So I want you guys to choose for me.
Oh.
Do you know what? I think you ought to do Joanna Dranth.
Yeah?
I do. I
Stick
really
to
think
Dranth.
so, yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be more of a challenge for you.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Joanna Dranth does... Forget the clowns. I think she does... It's
Yeah.
like crime
But a
stuff.
bit literary as well.
Well, you know, you're just saying it so you can
Feels a
write. This is
little
the
bit
point of this: is not to write what you always write. It's to do something different.
I think the name sounds a bit drabbly.
I
She's a
think
bit,
it's crime,
you know.
but it's ghost. It's paranormal. That's what her name sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Joanna Dranth.
Joanna Dranth.
It could be, yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a bit spooky. Yeah.
Paranormal crime.
I'm happy with that. I'll go with that.
Mm.
All right, brilliant. Okay, well that's
Right.
that's our homework then, to go away and write as that person, and then we'll come back in a week's time and
See what it is.
Yeah, and share.
I feel like I've got the short end of the stick here.
Well, so I think
we all
really
have,
the
haven't we?
purpose
Yours is easy, John.
sort of writes itself. But I think the purpose of the exercise is just to see if is it in any way sort of, if there's any freedom that comes from writing as someone else, or if it feels sort of more restrictive. But just have fun with it, guys. Have fun with it. See what happens.
Right, yeah.
That's the
Okay.
point. Right. Report back.
All right. Yeah.
Quick question.
Mm.
Do we have to dress like them as well, or is it just like...
That's a good
I
idea.
think it
Yes,
would
we
be better
do.
if you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You brought it up, mate. You brought it up. You obviously want to do it, Tommy, because you brought it up.
That was good, wasn't it? Fascinating stuff. I wonder if this next bit will be as interesting. Well, let's bloody well find out, shall we?
So how did we get on, boys?
Yeah. Yeah. We got on. We did get
Yeah?
on. Yeah. I sort of
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think I thought about it way too much. I spent way too much time trying to pin down exactly who this guy was. But then that was kind of the point, wasn't it? It was like seeing how it feels to write as someone else, inhabiting another skin. I think I went a bit too like actory in it, and
I think that's a good thing, isn't it?
yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah,
Under the
I
skin.
don't know if
That's
I don't know if
good.
it really helped or not.
So what was yours called again, Dave? Remind me.
So he was Dr. Novad Baji.
Ah, yes.
Ah, yeah.
Well, let's start off with the bio. Let's hear that. We had a little play around before, didn't we? Well, what we thought it might be. Let's see if it ended up as that.
Well, so I started to think, actually, it's probably a bit too obvious for him to just be like an Indian doctor, right? This is where I went with it. So he's actually, his biography is that he is, because his first name's Novad as well, and I thought, actually, that sounds a bit like Novak. It's a bit more sort of Serbian, Slovakian, that sort of thing. So I thought, actually, he's possibly the sort of outcome of two immigrant parents. So maybe rather than being Indian, perhaps he's from America, right? So he's an American son of two different immigrants living in California. And he's a doctor, but he's not a real doctor, I don't think. He's kind of, one of those fake, self...
Like bloody Dr. Zeus.
Yeah,
like
like
the
bloody
fraud.
Doctor, exactly. He's like a sort of
He's got a
self-actualization.
PhD in solar flares.
Yeah,
or
so he's
something.
a tech startup, like entrepreneur type dude, just a bit of a hipster living in California. So that's his sort of...
Oh, my God. What's he writing about?
Well, so he's basically... So the book is called Beyond the Beyond. And I thought, actually, also with a name like Doctor, it lends itself to like non-fiction.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So it's a sort of self-actualization book. So the idea is that he's created an app to help him discover who he is, and has then written a sort of book about that.
Wow.
The sort of self-actualization process.
brilliant.
It might be easier if I just read like the first page of the book.
Yeah, great.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is Beyond the Beyond, a higher state of consciousness by Dr. Novad Baji. On March 19th, 2020, in a little corner of Tahoe Park, Sacramento, I was posed the single most profound question ever faced by a human being in the history of time as we understand it. The first COVID lockdown in the United States had just been announced, and like sheep, we were all ordered to stay at home under pain of torture, incarceration, or even state-sponsored genocide. But they didn't specify whose home you had to stay in, which is how I came to find myself in a beautiful apartment complex on the South Side with minimal security and a very aggressive color scheme that was fueling my lysergic acid high. And whilst I was on the floor of this vintage retro kitchenette staring at the swirling vinyl spirographs as they bounced off the cooler, a man walked in. A man who claimed ownership of the property. His giant fingers turned into vegan sausages as they reached towards me, and picking me up by my collar, he asked that most profound of questions. Who the fuck are you? And at once it made me think, who the fuck am I? Yeah, I'm the son of immigrants. Yeah, I'm a tech startup superstar. Yeah, I'm totally ripped and clearly a 10. But who am I? That night, I slept under the stars. I mean, I was in a prison cell, but I could see stars everywhere. And as I looked at them, I formulated a plan that would look deep into my past, present, and future, and pull together all of the threads of my physical, spiritual, emotional, technological, and chemical selves. By combining the Slavic mythology and Indian mysticism of my migrant ancestors with the latest Silicon Valley AI tech and Class A narcotics, I would finally get to the truth. The singular truth, the only truth that really matters. Who the fuck am I? But in order to reach that truth, I first had to discard the vestiges of the person I thought I was. I mean, if someone asks you who you are, how do you respond? You give your name, right? But is that who you are, or is it just who you are? In the end, the desk sergeant stopped asking me and just wrote John Doe, but it was the start that I needed. I gave away my name. I gave away my home, my possessions, my clothes, my assets. Not in a real sense, of course. I still owned them. But in an even realer sense, I gave them away to the universe. I put them in trust of the universe on the understanding that the universe would give them back whenever I needed them. And once I'd shed my material self, I poured what remained of my essence into an app of my own design and allowed it to show me, for the very first time, the one true reflection of myself. And you can find out what it said and the earth-shattering implications of what this means for you and your true self for a one-off payment of just $10. There we go. This is the opening chapter of Beyond the Beyond.
Wow.
It's very good.
Wow.
I mean,
I think you did inhabit something there, Dave, didn't you?
I think I did. I really
Definitely
got
did.
into his skin, yeah.
You really did get into his character, didn't you? Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
that was brilliant. I mean, weirdly convincing as well. I was ready to sign. I was ready to download, do whatever you need me to do, join your cult, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what it sounded like?
Who am I?
It sounded like the start of like a really good film. You know, it has sort of the narrative voiceover of the main character. It's kind of setting up
Yeah.
before everything goes to shit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or gets amazing and then turns to shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, Dave. That was very
That
good.
was different, wasn't
nice
it?
nice little twist there.
Novad Badge. I thought it was nice because also I was originally thinking like it's sort of with a name like Baji, sort of Indian colonial influence, and then I was gonna do like a sci-fi analogy of sort of the colonial, like Britain and India, and then some sort of science fiction space analogy type thing. And I thought, well, I've done science fiction, but I don't think I've really done a sort of non-fiction.
Yeah,
So-
non-fictional fiction.
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Very nice, Dave.
Right.
Very nice. Do you want me to go next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had Joanna Dranth, we decided on.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And after a little bit of thinking, I decided that I've got a little biog here. She was born in Ripon, North Yorkshire, 1958. She grew up absolutely certain that she would write books. She was one of them. And her mother worked at Woolies in Ripon, where Joanna would borrow books by shoving them up a jumper when her mum wasn't looking. And then she'd return them the following week. And she did this until her mum noticed and introduced her to the local library. So she ended up reading absolutely loads, and then ended up writing her first book at 14, and then published her first book, A Spell in Pendle, when she was 23. And she returned to the subject of northern witches when she was 46 with her novel Ursula, winning the Whitbread Book Award in 2004, just beating Mark Haddon in A Parallel Universe.
You've been a bit presumptuous with your bio, really, haven't you?
I know.
Yeah, exactly,
I have to say, I really enjoyed writing that, and by proxy, in my imagination, winning myself the Whitbread Prize.
Well done.
Bit cheeky,
It's amazing,
that.
isn't it? The power of the imagination is incredible.
And then she went on to solve world hunger, world peace, invented a brand new propulsion system, which has meant how humanity has left
She's
the planet.
incredible, Joanna. Absolutely amazing woman. So yeah, I've always had a bit of a fascination with Mother Shipton, or rather, Joanna has.
I was going to say, it's not about you, John.
Yeah.
No, it's not about me. But I think if you ever taken to a cave in Knaresborough as a kid, you remain a little bit haunted by the memories.
Yeah, I think I've been.
Yeah, because mainly of a statue in the cave.
Well, we should explain to people.
I will do. Yeah, I totally thought that the little the stone statue in the cave. At the time, I thought that was the actual Mother Shipton turned to stone by the famous petrifying well, in the same way that people's teddy bears and shoes and bicycles have been. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to look up Mother Shipton, because she was a real person. It is an amazing story. She was a sort of a witchy type woman who supposedly predicted like the fire of London and the death of Cardinal Wolsey and various other things back in the 1500s. But I thought that would be exactly the kind of thing that Joanna Dranth would focus her energies on. You know, she would take fascinating, resilient female historical figures and bring them to life. A bit like kind of Maggie O'Farrell, Hilary Mantel, something like that. So that's what I've gone for.
Oh, okay.
So this is Ursula.
Sorry, just to clarify before you start on this one. This is the award-winning one, isn't it? Yeah?
This is the award winner.
This is the award-winning.
So,
I think
Right.
I think you'll be able to tell.
apparent that one. Yeah, sorry.
I think you'll be able to
yeah.
tell as soon as
Yeah,
I start
absolutely.
reading.
Yeah.
The sky split above the cleft of rock. Fiery curses spat from above, more curses from the mouth of the cave, as though pleading for the sky's whip-crack lashes to cease. One realm was breaching another. From the cavity of Agatha's womb, something that did not belong, that could not belong here, was crossing over, entering this world. With every scream that issued through the raw night, light and dark, flashes of white-blue were visible through the opening. She was coming, and she was bringing with her a discord, a subversion of sanity and routine and reason that would fill bright young eyes with fear, with hope, with wonder, even for the next several centuries. One more great rent, and she arrived. Thin, hunched, cloaked in fine black hair, jaw jutting like an animal's snout. Pillowed in the crease of her mother's arms, curled up, she resembled a baby she-bear. Ursula had arrived. The trail from Knaresborough to the little cabin up on the hill was well worn by the trudge and hobble of the afflicted, the clogs of the knock-kneed and the elderly, the scuffed boots of a weary farmer's lad sent to fetch a poultice for his ailing master. Halfway along this trail was a man in his mid-20s. He had stopped and was kicking the heads of dandelions and muttering something under his breath. A moment later, he turned around and was making his way back in the direction of Knaresborough before abruptly pivoting once more and returning along the path towards the cabin. He was swarthy in complexion, bearded and sinewy, and his shaggy hair was spangled with tiny curls of wood shavings. He quickened his pace, then stopped, and again continued. "It must be right nasty," came a shrill voice from the hedgerow a few yards to his side. Tobias pulled up suddenly, looking over to an elder tree where a thin young woman stooped in its shade, the pocket of her apron brimming with elderberries. The man's eyes skimmed along the rounding of her spine, the prominence of her nose and the protrusion of her jaw, but all that really registered as he took in her face was the violet splendour of her eyes and her broad smile. The man coughed and said, "I didn't see you, Miss Southill." "Few really do," she said cryptically, and took a step towards him. "So am I right?" she asked. "Pardon? Am I right? Is it nasty?" The man's face was beginning to colour, as though the sun had suddenly set upon him. "Is what nasty?" "The rash," said the young woman, looking directly at him. "Well, I'm not—" She was smiling again now, her skin bleached suddenly by the sun as she stepped from the shade. "Well, that were a good guess, weren't it?" she said. "Come on, let's get you right." Tobias bit down hard on his humiliation and followed the young woman along the trail towards her cabin. He had seen her before, of course, many times. Even as a boy, he couldn't help but notice her around town, or out on the lanes exploring the undergrowth for herbs. Could not ignore the rumours, or fail to hear the comments, sometimes whispered, more often hurled openly in the street. He'd also noticed how the girl never retaliated at the vicious things said to her, but would simply turn her head slowly towards her denouncer, with a look almost of compassion, before disappearing into the crowd. But Tobias had never before spoken to the young woman. He had long been warned not to by his mother, who, among others, had told him how the girl had been born of a witch and the devil himself. It was well known that Ursula Southill's mother, Agatha, had been dragged before the magistrates after giving birth to her in a cave, and had refused to give the name of the father, even after being threatened with lashes. Evidence enough that she had copulated with Satan. Why else would she not tell? Arriving at the cabin, Ursula waved him in, then lowered herself into a wicker chair next to shelves and shelves of dried herbs, roots and berries in jars and baskets. "Now then," she said, matter-of-factly, "let's have a look." And that's as far as Joanna got.
It's funny that she won an award for just just the first chapter. That's very
Just
good.
the first bit of a book. It's amazing. But it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The judges thought, yeah, that's.
Do you know what? I tell you what, my first thought of that is, John. I really want to know who her father was.
I know. Yeah.
I feel like you can't leave it like that. You're gonna have to figure that out and come back to us.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I've got a little bit of a problem with that, John.
What's that? What's that, Tommy?
Be interested to hear what your thoughts are on it. But I'll pause. Let me pose a question to you, a leading question, perhaps.
Yeah.
But so the idea of this is to, write outside your comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that was a large step out of your comfort zone, or was there quite a lot of John Rand in that?
I see what you're saying.
It was great, by the way.
yeah, there was certain like very Johnish phrases.
I think that's a really very fair
But
comment.
that's an interesting thought in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like how hard it is to write outside of yourself.
Yeah.
But then you see the kind of stuff that I like to read is that sort of thing, probably.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. I didn't sort of deliberately go down that way. I was thinking, yeah, I'll try and go for a style that's in that kind of area. But actually, that I do read that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
so I inevitably end up.
No, I think it's an interesting question, like a interesting technical
But no, I
question.
think that's absolutely fair, Tommy. Yeah, I take that. I take that on board.
More of an interesting observation, isn't it, about how do you take yourself out? Like, what do you have to kind of almost force yourself? Because it's
I think if I'd have chosen one of the other anagram names, that probably would have helped, because I think one was like a Dutch.
Yeah. Maybe set it a bit further away from where you live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Just
not
up the
just
road.
literally down the road. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, probably true. But I don't know if you noticed, but I've also set it up so that I might be able to turn this into a love story.
No, well, this is why I was thinking this has still got John Rand written through it.
Yeah,
Like the literary stick of rock. But yeah, I think that could be.
This planned love story anthology. This could definitely fit in there. I think.
Yeah.
I'm creeping. I've got something to ask you actually. I'm getting closer to something that resembles a book. How many do you think you need? Or how long do you think it needs to be? That's probably
short stories in an anthology.
It's short stories, flash fiction. Yeah, in an anthology. How many stories do you need for something like that? I think I've got 8 at the moment, and I'm up to about 24,000 words.
Well, that's quite a thin book, isn't it? At that?
Well, it is massively at the moment.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think I need to double that? Do you think that's enough?
Yeah.
That's still a fairly thin book.
That's of a dipping in and out short story sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So like 50,000, 40,000, 50,000.
Yeah, I think that's
I
a
get
good-
away with.
40,000 odd,
Sort of
yeah. if you're-
Short novella length. kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thomas,
Yes. So
reminders.
Irma Thornset.
Ah, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So she was born in 1939 and grew up in Canterbury. Only child, daughter of a banker and a florist. And her worldview and underlying messages in her work are thought to be taking quite a lot of influence from the fact her dad was a florist and her mum was a banker, which was very unusual at the time, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been mirrored in her non-traditional gender roles that have woven their way through her work. Because she is, as we discovered, sort of a romance, historical fiction romance writer, which I was overwhelmed and overjoyed to hear that's what we all decided she would be. Maybe that's partly the reason for my comment on your work, John, that slight element of jealousy that.
Yeah, it was easy to steer towards something you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I've done my best. I've tried. And I think it's funny. I've only written a little bit, but as I got sort of a third of the way through this, I realised actually it's kind of a homage to a very entertaining film.
Oh.
Okay.
But done in a historical period romance sort of way.
Okay.
I came up with the title before anything else.
Is it Blazing Saddles, by the way?
It's not.
Okay.
But we'll take your guesses at the end of this short
That's
chapter.
a nice little bonus quiz.
I have no idea why, and I don't think it makes any sense, but the title kind of just appeared from Irma's imagination.
Right.
Okay.
So it's called The Fleeting Stride of Gallows Gate, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you can really see it written on the front of a book, can't you? That kind of scroll font, maybe embossed in gold on the front of a book with some countryside-y scene behind.
Yeah. It could almost be like a Flora Opal, that, couldn't it?
I think she is. I think she probably... she might have gone to school with Flora, yeah?
Oh, I see. Yeah, of course.
The Fleeting Stride of Gallows Gate. The morning dew glistened on the stray threads of the thin blanket which barely covered her. The cobbles, cold and uncompromising, had been sucking the heat from Evelyn's shivering body all night. Now the shallow rising sun flooded the shop doorway and brought just the slightest drop of warmth to her cheeks. How had it come to this, she thought. Never had she been what you would consider high in society. The circles she moved in were nothing but those of what most would think to be the great unwashed. But it was an honest life, one where she could take pride in helping to provide for her family, and through her sweat and toil at least be in a position to make a convincing argument that she held some purpose in life. "That one there," cut a voice from the curb, cast from a recently paused coach, the horses impatiently hooving the street. "I can't tell how she looks," came another very different voice, yet conveying no doubt as to the similarity in both speakers' upbringing. "Just another layer of chance woven into the wager, I would suggest. You may hit lucky with a vixen, or not so with a sow. I'll take my chances on any creature and still take your purse. And 90 days? Is that what we concluded? Well, allow me to first enquire as to her volition in the matter, of course. You may, although I cannot think you will find anything but keenness. I shall bid you farewell, and shall make my own way back from my appointment at the bank. Very well, Charles. I will see you this evening. Quite. Good day." The firm, expensive leather boots of the first man were offering a suitable substitute for the now becalmed horse's hooves, as the staccato clip of his purposeful walk towards her echoed across the street yet to fully awake. Evelyn has heard nothing of the two gentlemen's exchange, and despite the rhythm of the opulent French footwear drawing ever closer, she was somewhat surprised when he stopped beside her. "Madam, excuse me," he said. "Me, sir?" replied still drowsy Evelyn. "Of course. I wondered if you might allow me to offer you the use of my carriage." "Use of your carriage, sir?" "Yes, in order to warm yourself, and I can take you wherever you may need to go in the city." "I've nowhere to be," she replied, in as sarcastic a tone as a natural deference was allowing. "Well, come, I insist. Let us take you and get you a hot breakfast and some clean clothes at least." "Really, sir?" "Really. It would be my pleasure." Evelyn held some suspicion, but not enough that would outweigh the hole in her stomach where she wished there were food. Her white knight in leather boots held out his hand to aid her to her feet, and she stood, forcing her hand ineffectually through her tousled locks, embarrassed for her appearance. "Don't worry about that," her apparent saviour said, quickly ascertaining that the subject of his wager thankfully appeared to be much more on the vulpine end of the scale than the porcine. Something, he felt, would tip the odds slightly in his favour. So that's the start of my romantic tale.
Interesting.
I mean, it's very... I think it's quite un-Tom-like.
Yeah, I'd say it's on Tom-like.
As a starting point, yes. I think
It had Tommy things in it.
Yes.
Vulpine and porcine and things. That's
yes.
very Tommy.
Yes.
But it was,
So it was definitely
nice.
out of your usual area.
Yeah, well, I thought that until I realised what film it was. But yeah.
What is
Is
it?
it,
What film is it?
Is it
It's not Trading Places.
Trading Places.
Is it Trading Places?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Homeless woman that's
It
hit rock
is.
bottom on the street.
Yeah, guys having the
Two
wager.
people having some kind of wager over her. I assume in this scenario about can you make it past high society? Can you sort of Pretty Woman, Trading Places, all that business?
My Fair Lady,
Which is a good
obviously,
setup.
as well.
Yeah, it's a good setup for your old romantic.
It is. It's a classic. It's an
Yeah.
absolute classic. It's very Barbara Carter-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, which is
It's good. I liked it.
very Thornsettian, isn't it?
Very, very Thornsettian. It's yeah. What era would you say that's taking place in? Would we say like there's like 1880s
Yeah.
or something?
Yep, exactly
Or-
that. Yep.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Mm.
It's got everything going for
Yes,
it.
it definitely had that period.
And of course, though, they will fall out because she will discover that there's this wager, and then
they'll fall in love just before that.
Yeah.
exactly, and then they'll fall out, and then
The-
it's
the
that's the
end.
end of that, and then of course he'll
He'll
win
have
her
the
back.
money, and she'll come running
beautiful.
back. Yeah, that's
What I really like about it is that it's very true to a genre, isn't it? It feels exactly right. It's got the right kind of movement from the beginning. It's got the right sort of tropes being set up and everything. It's like you've read loads of romance, Tom, which I'm guessing probably isn't true.
Anyway, moving on.
Or you've just seen Pretty Woman a lot of times, haven't you?
It was entertaining, actually. Do you know what? I don't know if you guys would agree, but
Yeah.
I know obviously Dave did an awful lot of thinking and moving around with his. Mine was pretty much just came out as it was. But it does work, doesn't it? That you kind of just slightly embody a different
I
thing.
don't.
It's almost like the rules and the restrictions that you put on yourself have almost, you've almost, you know, where you normally go, oh, that's not me, that's not my style. Oh, that's not how I do it.
That's
gets rid of that.
Yeah. I don't know how you found it, but I found it so much easier just to not.
Yes.
Not worry about what I was writing, not even think about it. Just like get it down.
Doesn't matter because it's not really me.
It's not me.
It's not my fault if it's shit, is it?
Exactly. Blame bloody Dr. Bargy. It's his fault.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of truth in that. It makes you wonder when people sort of, you know, we talked about at the start, people who used a pseudonym, whether they wrote in their minds in that pseudonym, or whether that was something they just sort of stamped on the book afterwards because that's what they want to be called.
I think that's an interesting question, that, isn't
or whether they were sat down each day, have a spot of breakfast, and then go and be pseudonym, write for 4 hours or whatever, and then come back to being whoever they actually are.
Yeah. It might be a good way, of stopping the writer in you taking over your entire life.
Yeah.
Quite like that. You leave the room and you leave the writer behind.
Or it might not be healthy having multiple split personalities. I mean, there's probably several
There's different ways of looking at it, yeah.
But it's definitely a technique that I will try to employ more.
Yeah, it was a fun task.
Do you know what I think? I can see being useful, like writing short stories and flash fiction as well.
Yeah.
Where you can just kind of put yourself in a completely different person for the sake of that story. You start looking from a slightly different perspective.
Because I think what I'll do from now on, every time I write, is I will pretend to be someone who's a really good writer.
And then just say they've won loads of awards, like John did.
Exactly, yeah.
It weirdly really helps just to know that you've got that award tucked away behind you.
I can imagine John writing away at his and glancing up at the shelf to look at his award and then go, oh yeah, there's not one there, is there? Typing away for a bit longer, looking up again. Oh no, I don't actually have an award. Not really. It's good that you get into that character.
Yeah,
good.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, I would definitely.
You're writing with a certain kind of confidence, aren't you?
Exactly that. Yeah, it gives you that sort of false confidence that you need.
Which is, we all know, is a great thing to
It really
have.
is. Yeah.
Always works. Yeah.
Well, good experiment, that.
Very nice.
A good task, actually, and a useful one at that. So I hope, I hope our dear listeners have enjoyed it, and perhaps our listeners can pretend to be. In fact, you could pretend to be someone else whilst listening to this episode and see if you enjoy it more.
Well, we did send a tweet out asking people to send us their pseudonym names, their anagrammed names.
Did anyone respond?
We got some good responses.
Have we?
Do you know, I thought it was great as well when people are coming up with the names and messing around with the anagrams. It almost is that thing. As soon as you get in the name, everyone agrees what the genre is. Oh, yeah, definitely is that, yeah. Phil Oddie came up with Di Dolphy, an Australian rom-com writer. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, I see that, yeah. And he said, oh, they've all got a beach theme. You go, yeah, of course. You imagine it's just available in all good airports. Exactly the sort of book you'd pick up for a holiday.
Stephen Stillbeck came up with Vetch Bensilt, and he said, Detective Noir, debut novel, The Case of the Missing Starlet.
Yeah, Vetch.
That's a bit Scandi Noir.
All dark corners and black and white, yeah. Jeff Harrison got a brilliant one. Fraser Hoofing. That's what a brilliant name, isn't it? what an absolute corker.
That is good, yeah. Did he give any indication as to who he believes Fraser would be?
He said his first release is going to be called The Stranger in the Smoke.
Emily Devane came up with Eva Ledimni. I quite like that. To me, that's mid-20th century objectivist philosophical literature
Yeah, absolutely.
involving anthropomorphic animals.
I don't think it could be anything else.
It's almost certainly that, isn't it?
And Haley Price had Charlie Yipe, a crime caper with unexpected twists.
Yeah. Have you read the most recent Yipe? Have you got the latest Yipe? Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
You'd have Yipites that, devour it all. Slightly comic, I think, isn't it? But dark comedy. Yeah, like crime capers, dark comedy. Absolutely.
Donald Fogarty, Dragonfly Tao, Triad Tales and Hong Kong Police Procedurals.
Yeah. Dragonfly Tao. That's a great name.
Travis Bluey Seas, that's Steve Salisbury's new age hippie who lives in a trailer park. Is that a writing style he put? It is now, mate.
Oh, well, that's a good selection, isn't it? That's a fair spread.
It's pretty
But
good.
it goes to show, doesn't it? You come up with a name for your anagram thing and then it works.
Yeah.
You get an instant feeling of where you need to be going.
Yeah.
with it.
And maybe if someone out there does that on the back of this episode and fancies having to go an actual little bit of flash fiction or something on the back of it, or at the beginning of a novel or something, send us it. It'd be nice to hear what you've actually come up with, not just your name.
Some of those were really just great names as well. I Dragonfly Tao. I'd love to be called Dragon. And was it Vetch?
That's memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, Vetch is a great sort of character name as well, isn't it? Good old Vetch.
I think we can probably wrap it up there, can't we? And say to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please go and hit that subscribe button on your podcast app thingy.
Yep.
Share it with friends, let other people know.
Yep.
Especially anyone, who wants to write a book or always thought about writing a book or anything like that.
And do it now. Do it now before you forget. Otherwise, you might never
not do it.
Yeah. And then what will happen? Bad things will happen then.
What will become of us?
So make sure that happens. And should we? Do we know what we're doing next episode?
Not really.
Not really. So let's not say what it is, and then we can decide later.
Do we even know who we will be in the next episode?
Exactly. We might decide to be
completely different names.
Yeah, completely different people.
Yeah.
I might be Boz Lozinger, for example, or Norman Clench. You just don't know. You just don't know.
Well, let's go away and then come back and find out.
Oh, well, thanks very much for listening.
Cheers, folks.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Where's everybody gone?